it's sign of a poorly run franchise. Like, if you're Sean Marks, don't even make the phone call or don't take the phone call. It's stupid. Like, I understand that in a negotiation, you should ask for more in your opening salvo than you plan to land on. But that doesn't mean if you're going into your boss's office for contract negotiations and you make 70 grand and you're hoping to get to 85, should you ask for 100? Sure. Should you ask for 1.4 million? No. Yeah, actually, they might end it right there. You know what? We're too far apart. And so Wilds, I think it's a sign of an unserious leader. Like, Daryl Morey once upon a time caught a lot of flack because when it looked like the Mavericks post-championship were starting a rebuild, he called Mark Cuban and asked him any interest in trading Dirk, and Cuban got super angry, and I think that there's still I don't know if there's still a grudge there, but I know there was for quite some time. This is worse than that. Like, I would feel like if I were not Danny Ainge, pardon me, Jen. If I were Brad Stevens, you're just wasting my time. Like, I'm busy. I got things to do. Like, what are we doing here? And so I think it's just really dumb. I think it's really dumb.
I think everything you said was fair, especially the Danny Ainge part that sent Jenna's heart aflutter. Oh, Danny Ainge. Speaking of, Danny Ainge is holding up the Donovan Mitchell trade. Let's make a move here. Here's the other angle of this, Jenna. And Nick, you brought this up the first time the Jaylen Brown trade was discussed when Jaylen tweeted, shaking my head, that once again he was in trade talks. And I had the opinion that, hey man, if you're being traded for one of the best players of all time, it's pretty much a compliment. But you brought up a good point, like not when it's like, oh, it's Tatum and Brown. Like, well, no, never, we're never gonna let go of Tatum. Well, but Jaylen Brown, yeah, of course. I think that eats away and erodes at the chemistry of the Celtics, which is another reason why I think this was a silly offer. But also, the Celtics need to tread lightly with Jaylen if it doesn't get this done. They better do something to get back in his good graces. Because if it doesn't happen, he needs to be all in, and the Celtics need to prove that they're all in on him.
Also, as evidenced by the next story Jenna's about to bring up, I feel like it might be possible that our beloved Chris Broussard is consulting front offices across the league. Because this would absolutely be Broussard's. Oh, you want Kevin Durant? Give me Tatum and Brown. And speaking of our beloved Chris Broussard on takes that I totally disagree with, Jenna, what are we talking about next? Another thing that could have come straight from the mouth from our dear friend.
Can Durant win a title if he just stays in Brooklyn? Although I can't see that happening now.
Look, if you're playing with video game players, then probably you could. But you're not. And there's real emotions involved. And buried in one of the Kevin Durant articles yesterday was this little factoid from the New York Post. And this had been whispered about, but this is the first time I've really seen it in print. Kevin Durant's Nets issues run much deeper than Steve Nash. Durant, among other things, was not consulted on Nets' firing of assistant coach and director of player development Adam Harrington when the season ended, the source believes. There are simple things that erode a relationship. You fired someone he was close to and didn't have a conversation about it, the source said. Now, Adam Harrington was with KD in Oklahoma City, was his personal trainer, was shooting coach, came to Brooklyn, and then I guess was just let go. So, again, Sean Marks, we're only into the second story of this segment, and it looks like another bad move from you. And it's like, well, maybe it's Steve Nash. Well, okay. I think Sean Marks is still consulted on that stuff. If you're making moves on your roster that are going to upset the star player out of common courtesy and, HR, give a guy a heads up. Let Kevin Durant know, you know what? This thing with Adam Harrington isn't really working with us. But if the fact that he was blindsided by it, there's a reason that he's upset, and I think we're learning more of it, and it's not necessarily Nash's out-of-bounds plays.
Yeah, listen, it's an absurdity. With respect to Adam Harrington, You know why Adam Harrington was hired? Because Kevin Durant wanted him hired. That doesn't mean he's not qualified. Doesn't mean he didn't do a good job. But the same reason they were after Royale Ivy and all these guys that had KD connections. To fire him at all is ridiculous. Well, as long as KD's there, KD, a guy you brought on because KD wanted him, should be there. Wilds, you know this. If the audience doesn't, I do a podcast in addition to the show called What's Right with Nick Wright. My co-host is my son. Now, do I think he does a very good job? I do. Do I also think he got that gig in part because of me? I do. And if all of a sudden he came upstairs, was like, they fired me, like they fired you, like, yeah, they say I don't project my voice well enough on the air. In my head, I'd be like, well, you don't. But out loud, I'd be like, yeah, but it doesn't matter. That's not what you're here for. You know why you're here for it? Because I wanted you here. And if they had done that without giving me a heads up, I'd be quite angry. And I'm not Kevin Durant. So, yeah, I mean, but can I also address the initial anonymous quote here? The best roster since he's been in Brooklyn. No, it's not. No, it's not. First of all, the best roster over his time in Brooklyn was the one they had when he first got to Brooklyn. That rotation, Wilds, was, tell me if you think this team could win a title. Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Jared Allen, Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie. Joe Harris is a sixth man if you want him. Jeff Green when he was still good. Your eighth man is Landry Shamet. Your ninth man is Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown was like their second most important player this year. That's what the team turned into. You know what the second best roster they've had since Durant's been there? The one that started the playoffs a year ago, or I guess 2 years ago, beat Boston in 5. I looked it up this morning. KD, Kyrie, and Harden in that series against Boston, between the three of them, averaged 85, 21, and 17 on 52, 45, 91 for a playoff series. So that's a pretty good, even if you don't have the depth. Yeah, now people are trying to sell me the bill of goods that an older Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Ben Simmons, and TJ Warren and Royce O'Neal is the best roster. Not unless Royce O'Neal's mom is one of the defenders. I don't think he's going to be making big moves for him. So no, I just think the whole thing's silly. Like, of course this isn't the best team. And no, the next year Nets can't win a title because then next year becomes this year. And Jenna, you know, once it's this year, then the next year Nets can't win the title. We know.
And it's always the next year.
We know how it works.
Yep.
Rudy Gobert has been the exact same player by any metric or eye test for 5 straight seasons. That's indefensible. Like, I understand that Rudy Gobert is a devastating defensive force in the regular season. And trust me, I've done the deep dive on the old invaluable screen assist, a category that was created just to prop up Rudy Gobert's offensive value. But guess what? He was great at the screen assist 5 years ago. There is not look, whether it's the per 36, his advanced numbers, the traditional numbers, any of them. He's going to take 7 or 8 shots a game. He's going to do it at about 65% because they're not shots, they're lobs and dunks, and he's going to score about 15 points a night. Do it while rebounding at the same rate and while still defending at an unbelievable level. There's no excuse for that. Like, T-Mac Wilds is 100% correct that when you have a massive hole in your game, which is your inability to punish undersized defenders when teams go small against you, to not improve on that when you're a max player in this league, yeah, he should be upset. T-Mac is 1,000% correct.
I think you're right, and I think T-Mac is right. And I used to work with T-Mac, and I asked T-Mac one time we were just talking about his journey to the league, and it was so meteoric that he was basically playing baseball in high school, went to a camp and left the camp, the #1 high school player in America, gets drafted. And he was like, yeah, when I got drafted, I didn't know how to shoot. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, I just didn't really know how to shoot. So I know that T-Mac is viewed, he's a Hall of Famer now, but in his journey, he learned all of those things. He didn't come ready-made into the league. He learned all of those things, and I think there's an extra frustration when he sees guys who are 7 feet tall who are not putting in the same work that he had to take his game to the next level and next level and next level year after year after year. When you see, and still considered, you know, a star player, but is never reaching your potential like T-Mac did.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.